Oh, sorry. Just had audio issues for some reason. Hello. Welcome, as they say. But hey, big news out of nowhere. Um, Microsoft acquisition Activision. And everybody is like, oh my god, it's the biggest news. Well, obviously it's the biggest news. But more so, they're speculating and everything. But they're not asking the question we're asking here. Why? Well, if you actually pay attention to 2018, 2019, how the markets were going, the Xbox Series X, S, PlayStation 5s were announced 2018, 2019. So obviously, let's start with that. This is the why. Let's go back a few years and actually see why, because this is something that many people are not taking into consideration. They're just thinking because of just the recent situation that Activision is in. A lot of bullshit. Let's go back 2018, 2019. Microsoft and Sony announced their new consoles and how is it going to be. You know, they announced the Series X and they announced Series S, that is a little mini box. Uh, and then Sony announces PS5. Uh, so that's that. But when they announced both and how everything was going to work and the specs, even though they were released a few months, even though they were released, I think a few weeks or a few months later, one of the core things that everyone was saying is that us gamers flocked towards Xbox Series X and S, and all the game developers flocked to the PS5. But why is that? Well, simply marketing and how it was sold. We still didn't have that exclusivity that Sony still was having. That 1 year exclusivity on COD, 1 year or few exclusivities that Sony games have. No, that was actually before all the shenanigans. It was more so, developers felt more comfortable working with Sony than working with Xbox. Plus, you got Microsoft with their Game Pass being adjusted to what it is currently, the how it was going to evolve, how the compatibility was going to be, playing your all last Xbox games, from the first one towards the most recent one. And it was going to be, you know, a very big investment to actually make. And on the other side, you got, well, their compatibility is only to PlayStation 3 and PlayStation 2 games were for as much as you had a super, well, a supercomputer on the PS5, it was not going to run it because it was not determined to. And you're like, but why? Why are you not running all ass games? It's like, no, we want new games because our system allows it. And more so because, as we know, in the battle between Microsoft and Sony, where the games look more beautiful is actually in the PlayStation at that time than in Microsoft. Because right now, if you actually put both comparisons, if you want to run faster and it still looks good, and it looks great, Xbox, but still PlayStation's is like, oh, the graphics and they look beautiful and everything, and yeah, but because it's a more heavy in towards to looking good than performing good, it actually harms just a little bit, not like in the past, just a little bit now, you know from what I heard from my PlayStation buddies. Just a little. There's not a lot of change, but still, there's a little bit of difference there. But that's where it actually started. Sony was acquiring these game developers, these game studios, towards their corner in order for them to actually have exclusive games, exclusive this, exclusive that. And Microsoft announced the only exclusivity that they announced was actually Halo. Call of Duty, for as much as is a big franchise, it's sold in PC, PlayStation, Xbox. So, and there were still no crossplay. We were still in the era of Black Ops 4. So when Modern Warfare 2019 announced its crossplay, for their system, like actual crossplay, not shitty crossplay that we were promised years and years ago. It didn't matter if you had an Xbox, a PC, a PlayStation. So the lines are getting blurry there. So there's no exclusive games in the sense of way for a AAA franchises that sold in the three platforms. That's one thing. That's what started with COD, but it also started with in a certain way with Fortnite. But Fortnite was more so uh, PC, Xbox, and then it expanded PlayStation. Then you have Apex. On that regard, you got Overwatch, but still, most of the games that were exclusive, that were single player, and that were massive for this, were still on Sony. And even though that later on they were ported to the Xbox or PC, it didn't feel exclusive. Like, oh, we played it when everyone has played it. A good example of exclusive game is God of War, the Metal Gear series, The Last of Us, um, the good Last of Us. That is the first one, not the second one. Yeah, the second one is trash. um, so we go by that, and then pay attention to what Sony did with Call of Duty. The exclusive right of survival mode from Modern Warfare 2019 for a year. Nobody liked it. Nobody, because it felt like, hey, you're taking like a third of the game away from us, you know? And then Warzone released. And what happened with Warzone's release? Exclusive skin on Sony's part. Exclusivity. But then later on, we hear in 2020, Microsoft acquires Bethesda, a huge studio that has a lot of games. Why? Because these studios, even though some of the contracts were over, but you got to pay attention towards the greater scheme. Sony has a lot of studios, a shit ton of studios that have single player games that are all focused. They have history, or they're creating history. You know, and they're not going towards the other side. And then you got on the other part this indie developers games that, even though they're cheap and you can get them in the battle pass, in the game pass, of Xbox, and you can support it and you can say, oh, it's an indie game and everything. I mean, we saw it with Ori. That game was fantastic. But how many indie developers can achieve that level of recognition that you can say, whoa, it is only exclusive for Xbox and it's going to work? Very few. So what do you start acquiring in order for you to have more population of single player gamers? Well, number one, more exclusive, more besides acquiring more studios, is you open more your library that you had from the Xbox and Xbox 360 that had single player games. That's one of the moves. But then you remember, hey, Activision, even though it's in a shit ton, but it has Diablo, that it was a PC game. You had League of Legends, World of Warcraft. I think League of Legends it in a Activision Blizzard, but World of Warcraft is. You have Overwatch, all these other single player games that, even though they have a multiplayer facet, but you can acquire it and have more single player game developers that are AAA. Because of all the time that you had with this indie developers, since you had the Game Pass system and indie developers can put their games uh, in it and they can receive feedback if it is in beta stage, or hey, we developed this game, do you like it, let's get some feedback for a second part, we can update it. It was not a simple process. So you got to understand the fact that Microsoft was getting tired of waiting for these indie developers to actually gain more recognition, gain more funding from their crowd in order for them to actually make a big splash of a game. And many of these games that we saw last year, Cyberpunk was supposed to be kind of like an exclusive game, kinda. I put it in between quotes, kinda, because it was for the three platforms, but it was kinda for the Xbox because it was being promoted by Xbox, Microsoft. What ends up happening is a disaster of a game because your really exclusive AAA game that is Halo is still waiting. It released. It was the shock of the holidays because nobody expected to play the multiplayer that early, and then it's getting fixed. The multiplayer in all aspects, campaign releases. Everybody is in ecstasy, myself included. Then you had other two games that are multi-platform. Call of Duty Vanguard. You got Battlefield 2042 that sucked because they wanted live service, but they didn't give uh, the gamers a healthy game. It wasn't working. So it's more so a competition between Sony and Microsoft still. Who has these game developers on their side? These studios that develop AAA games that can also help indie games develop their games. you know so it's about acquiring the market. If you acquire a certain amount of market, then your competition won't be competition. It will be like a battle for second place for your competition, because it won't be for first place anymore. you know Now, they come up and saying, "Oh, Bobby Cutter is not going to go. Call of Duty is not going to be affected, and everything." Let me say this: from their announcement of the acquisition until 2023, that is June 2023, that is supposed to be this acquisition like official, a lot of shit can happen. It can be that because of the acquisition, Bobby Kotick is not necessary anymore. So the investors saying, "Hey, Microsoft knows how to manage their games." I mean, we see it with Bethesda. Bethesda was acquired, and even though the same guy is leading Bethesda, but most of the changes are not his call. It's more so uh, the board actually telling him, "You're going to do this, 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 and this to your games in order for us to acquire money in a better sense of way." Adjusting it so the players can play your game more stable. You know, it's not so much about the microtransactions; it's more so getting influx of stabilized games in order for you to have more audience in those games in order for you to actually charge microtransactions. I mean, if your game is shitty and you know your game is shitty, but you're not receiving money through microtransactions, for as much as you push new bundles and everything, people are not going to buy it because the game doesn't work. Example, Battlefield 2042. Example, to a certain degree, Call of Duty. Either Warzone, Vanguard, Cold War, and Modern Warfare. The developers are fixing it. For that regard, I applaud him. I applaud Raven, fixing. But on the other sense, you gotta understand that this is just the beginning of Microsoft taking away competition in a way of saying, Sony, step aside. We're gonna be the one that we have this, because you gotta remember also the competition that Microsoft had initially was Apple. Microsoft was the one that, even though it didn't start computers, but it made it so friendly, so you could say it cheap, to the degree that you can actually acquire their computers, their software, um, their security system, even though it was uh, at the beginning shitty. But it was so easy, it was so cheap, and you can modify it enough in order for you to actually set up your own PC. While Apple, even though Steve Jobs was alive, but it was more so like a fancy brand, but you couldn't customize it enough because it was another type of software. And then if you only had Apple and your partners in the business have Microsoft, well, software ain't compatible. You need to, and yes, you can say Microsoft, viruses and everything, but you gotta understand also, if it's cheap, if it's easy to modify, it's easy also to hack, it's easy also to get viruses in. And the complexity doesn't always mean like something good, because it restricts you to whom you can share, or you can, that easy between family if they don't have Apple. That was at the time. That was at the time. Right now, it's easy, obviously, but at the time, that was competition. So they have learned that, you know, we require firewall softwares, we require upgrades, we require this and that, in order for us to actually close the market. So what they're doing right now with the gaming community is that big AAA studios that know how to make uh, money through single player and also multiplayer acquire them. Even though some, because we gotta wait and see. There's also some contracts that actually expire this year and the next one on gaming studios that actually partner with Sony. So we gotta wait and see if Sony actually restructures those contracts. Or we sign an extension, or we get uh, a new deal. You gotta wait and see, because if they expire and Sony doesn't make it an offer, and Microsoft comes in with a sweeter offer and still lets you, do your thing, but you develop games now for Xbox and PC, which is most of the population. You got to remember that also. Most of the population of gamers is Xbox PC. So you got 2/3. And you have those gaming studios, and you had the 2/3. Where do you think the gamers are going to go? At that, the fact of what Sony said last year, at the end of last year, we're not going to focus. Well, I actually said it this past week, is that we're not going to focus on creating PS5s, we're going to focus on creating PS4s. But everyone wants to flock towards the new generation. And Microsoft just came out and say, we're going to do vice versa. We're going to stop producing Xbox Ones, all of them, and we're going to start producing more Series X and S. And if you produce more, you can actually make it a little bit more cheaper in order for your gaming community to actually acquire it, and then you can have game developers that you are acquiring develop those games to the next generation, and therefore there's no issue about it doesn't run well in old consoles, it doesn't run um, it doesn't bug or glitch as much. You liberate your developers and your gamers from the issue that games are still being adapted towards the last gen console, and they're being developed towards the new one, and you are giving them the new generation of consoles in an easier access. That is a big step, and I wouldn't be surprised if within the Call of Duty, because of they said the metaverse. What I'm thinking about it is that I think Modern Warfare 2, because we don't know if Treyarch is still going to be holding on to that Black Ops logo, because they shouldn't. It's not going to work. I understand the legacy that it has, but just stop it, because it showcased that you have lack of creativity. It's not that us COD players don't like the Black Ops tag or the franchise of Black Ops, but it's more so it tells us you're just trying to milk us out of nostalgia when you're not having creativity on it. We understand the Cold War has a lot of dark shit that you can explore, but you don't have to use the Black Ops tag for it. Or you can create another line of story. Treyarch, take notes from what Infinity War did. It created Infinite Warfare and it created Ghost. Speaking of, created these two games. Apart from Modern Warfare, branch out. Have have creativity outside of your Black Ops brand. You don't have it. They have. They have explored it. Yes, it wasn't as welcome as the Modern Warfare franchise because it was iconic at a certain time. But still, they branch out. They try new stories. It's a different story within Call of Duty. It's a different era within Call of Duty. And with the acquisition happening at the almost end, you could say like 3/4 uh, of Modern Warfare's 2 cycle, entering, that deal, I bet you Microsoft is going to step in and say, stop. This is the direction that we're going to do. And you're probably not going to see a Call of Duty in 2023. And you're going to see an exploration of the Call of Duty universe. And if that happens, that your iconic characters start to explore, like this, because it's becoming popular, you gotta also see what the media and TV series and movies are doing. This multiverse thing that it's going on, that has become popular within Marvel, and it's starting to be showcased more so on TV series. We got the famous Average Joe. What if I was this? What if I was that? So now that you have that, now you can actually see, oh, they're going to explore the universe of Call of Duty. It's like sit down, stop, let's explore the universe of Call of Duty. Now, and that could be interesting. That could be very interesting. But as all things that has, you know, an endless possibilities, it's just wait and see. But the acquisition, we don't have to wait and see. The acquisition was made actually because of how the markets are shifting. You know, it's Microsoft is trying to close the competition, saying there's no more competition. Another big studio, and we gotta wait and see if they acquire another big studio that will actually shut down Sony and make Sony the second officially the second place marker. Because if it does that, then it means that Xbox players and PC, that are your 2/3 of the gaming community, it's going to go more so like 3/4. Why? Because more population from PlayStation, since they don't have the PS5, and Sony saying we're not going to develop more PS5s, we're going to develop the last generation because of the situation, instead of adapting like Microsoft did, stop making the last generation, stop making more of the new generation that will actually allow us to make it a little bit cheaper for our consumers to actually get it, you know? Play more games. Hey, you want to play uh because I believe that World of Warcraft you can actually go and play the old one, the classic one over here. You have the power in your Xbox Series X to actually play it. I wouldn't be surprised if I see it in the next few weeks. World of Warcraft or on Series X, Overwatch and Series X, Diablo Series X. One, two, and three. So Microsoft, I applaud you on what you're doing. Acquiring and trying to make better games for your system, but it also I want to see more action. I want to see what you do within those studios. If you actually fix them, or if you actually just want them for money. Because we understand, you're acquiring them for money, but if you don't fix them in order for us to actually get better games, then you're no different than EA. You're not different from those scumbags that just want money. Example is Valorant. I haven't played Valorant, but I see the frustration of streamers, and more so Angry Joe. I was like, yes, it's a free to play game, but $75 for fucking skin, or $300 for a skin that does nothing. Come on, man. That's like NTFs. They're worth shit. So, but yeah, that's the why. That's the why they acquired. It's not so much because of the lawsuit of Activision. It's not so much because of the things that are going on within companies. That's independent. They know that they have acquired it. They cannot do nothing until 2023, June 20 of 23. So from that perspective, it's like it's so far off. But the deals, the specifics of the deal can actually change throughout the time, and you can adjust it. But actual change within Activision Blizzard is going to be, and Activision itself, not only Blizzard, it's actually going to be until June of next year. But the purchase of more studios, more exclusivity, more exclusive games towards Xbox and PC, yes, that is one of the biggest reasons they made that purchase. Because it is tiresome, I think, for their board to actually see game developers go towards Sony. And Sony, it's audio, Sony is televisions. It wasn't PlayStations. At the beginning, they were just like audio and video. Your TV screens, um, your audio. Your like Bose, your microphones. They at one point they trying to go into the cell phone game. So, but yeah, and that is the why. You know, more studios, more towards the 2/3 of the for the gamers, and so this is the big middle finger Microsoft gave to Sony and saying, "Fuck you! I want exclusivity as well, but because I have more gamers than you, I'm going to end it at the end." Ah, sorry. So yeah, that's why it's not fixing what Activision and Blizzard have it. It's more so acquiring it and have more games towards the 2/3 that are abandoned. Even though they have indie games, but and a huge library at their disposal, but that's the sole reason. Exclusive games towards 2/3 of the gaming community, PC and Xbox. Fuck you, that 1/3 that goes to Sony. And for that reason, congratulations, Microsoft. Even though it might make me sound like an Xbox fan, but it's more so I congratulate you because it's not only me, it's also other gamers that were waiting on those games to be outside of Sony's realm. Even though Activision Blizzard, PC, but you export to Xbox because Xbox, another third. But you understand the deal. So, anyways, a huge update. The rewrite is going to be rewritten into something else differently. It's going to be, it's not going to be called branded. No, I'm just going to take the story. I'm going to do certain modifications of it and publish it as a novel because I don't want to get into legal disputes with Activision on it. It's a good story. I have the basis. Just change the names, change a few stuffs in order for it to have the scenery good. Um, Plus, I know it's fictitious, but they haven't talked to me about it. So even though they might, copy paste it, but I doubt they're going to pick up the ghost story. Regardless, you got to be careful on it. On the other hand, we're going to return to streaming. Just give me a few days to actually fix my working agenda because start of the year, start of the business, clients get a little icky and our technicians, and sellers get all hypey. I work in a security company, so I'm supervisor, managing all of that. So, managing from home. Anyways, and stay safe, man. Omicron is spreading like I don't know. I don't have. It's spreading like the flood. But it's not the flood. Anyways, stay safe out there. Take care of yourself. Take care of others. And until next time, uh, see ya. And let's hope Microsoft acquires more studios from Sony because us 2/3 of gamers that are Xbox PC, we actually do those games. Those single player, those multiplayer games. Sony can just yeah, I think that, yeah, they can go fuck themselves if they're not going to develop new gen consoles, and Microsoft is. Yeah, bad moves. Anyways, see ya.